This is Nan McKay, and I would like you to meet a dynamic and innovative leader in the affordable housing industry. Columbia Housing's Chief Executive Officer, Ivory N. Mathews, was recently named one of the top 20 dynamic CEOs in 2021 by the CEO publication. The CEO publication is a global business magazine that recognizes CEOs across the industry, really in the whole United States and the United Kingdom. So welcome, Ivory.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nan, for having me here. And thank you for that awesome introduction. I feel like somebody who might be a tad bit important.
And you are. No question about it. So, Ivory, being named one of the top 20 dynamic CEOs in 2021 is just a huge honor. And you were even on the cover of a CEO publication, and your cover story is the center spread of the magazine. So tell us all about it. How did this occur? Tell us how you feel about it, everything you could think of.
Well, Nan, I am just humbly honored, working in the affordable housing space, dedicating my career to affordable housing. It's some heavy lifting. And so to receive a call from a publication that recognizes the work of affordable housing is one that totally caught me by surprise. I asked the editor when he called me, I said, how did you get my name? How do you research these, who you're going to ask to be on your cover, to ask to share stories. And they said that they do what a lot of people do in this day and time, and that is to follow people through their digital image out there on the internet and social media spaces. And they not only look at how you communicate to people in those spaces, but they also do some fact checking behind the scenes to really evaluate the impact and effectiveness that you made in your space. And so I was so thrilled to receive that call. It actually, took me a few days to agree to the offer, only because, there's so many of us who are working in this affordable housing space that does great things. And so, I feel like this honor or this acknowledgement is solely representative of all of the work that all of my colleagues do across the country. And so to receive that honor, I certainly take it on behalf of, or accept it on behalf of all of the great folk who are out there doing the work, who are considered to be trailblazers as well.
But you have done some innovative things, so we're going to talk about that. Let's step back a little bit and say, you've dedicated more than 20 years of your professional career to the affordable housing industry. And I think a question a lot of times people have that don't know our world of the housing authorities is, what are the differences, in your opinion, between being a government-related CEO versus private sector?
Certainly. Oftentimes I'm asked, what are the differences, right? And I always tell people, while there are some subtle differences, there shouldn't be any difference. Just because you run a nonprofit organization or, an organization that's not a nonprofit organization, you still should have some of those same core principles and beliefs to make sure that you are meeting the mission of your business. I just happen to work in a world where I have a social mission, right, to provide quality, affordable housing, but I still need to operate like a business. And so I still need to make good, sound decisions to make sure that I'm taking care of the financial resources that business has. And I'm also making sure that I take care of the customers that we serve. Overseeing a housing authority, we do, have traditionally received a lot of our resources primarily through congressional appropriations each year. But what I found myself involved in, particularly over the last 15 years, is really looking at how we can diversify our income and our sources of revenue to make a much larger impact than what we currently do, having to depend on the very limited and very diminishing resources that we have received through congressional appropriations. So the difference that I have is I diversify our resources to bring in public-private partnerships to create more quality, affordable housing for the people that I serve.
Yeah, I think I really agree with you that there's, in the day-to-day functions, there's no real big difference. I think the main difference is that you're accountable to the public. That is much more difficult than I think in the private sector. I mean, I know they have a board, but typically you have a board as well, but you're operating in the public view with public money. And I think that is much more difficult generally than in the private sector. So that would be one I would list. What do you think about that?
Oh, absolutely. Without a shadow of a doubt. One of the things that I always pride myself on, and that is the transparency and accountability to the public, and communicate. Make sure the public knows that you are good stewards of taxpayers' dollars. It is super important to have that at the forefront of everything you do. Even when there's a situation where you need to say, you know what, my bad, we're going to correct it. It's so important to be transparent with the public about their resources. And I think in the long run, it adds value to what your organization is trying to accomplish. And people will at least give you the benefit of the doubt that you are really working to do the best thing, and you have their taxpayers' dollars at in the best interest.
I agree. How did you originally get interested in the affordable housing world?
Well, so I honestly attribute my interest in the affordable housing world. I feel like it began at birth. I was born in rural South Carolina to a young woman who was married at the age of 15. She birthed me at the age of 16. By the time she was 22 years old, she had 5 kids, no high school diploma or GED. She worked her tail off in countless low-paying jobs. And to compound matters, we lived in less than inadequate housing. We lived in a 1960s trailer. When I say trailer, not a mobile home, a trailer, that my daddy Jimmy rigged to the umpteenth degree. And as a child, if I could have had one wish to come true, it would be to have a better place to call home. In our trailer, it was common for us to have sewer backups in our home because it was serviced by insufficient septic systems that my daddy built using cinder block and any other thing that he can manage to jimmy rig. And then we also, our source of heating was kerosene. And so these were some of the things I experienced growing up. And, fast forwarding, the first time I was able to experience quality, affordable housing was, I happened to be a pretty decent kid playing athletics in high school. And so I landed an opportunity to an athletic scholarship at a small liberal arts school college in South Carolina. And that was the first time that I experienced living in adequate housing. And that was a college dorm room. And so after graduating from college, I knew that I wanted to work in a space where I could relate, where I could give back, where my passion could meet my purpose. And affordable housing is that space for me. So shortly after graduating, I landed a job working at a local housing authority, and I began to use my personal experiences and my passion and my purpose to do everything in my power to make sure that that I could give one extra child, one extra family, mother, father, sister, brothers, an opportunity to live in quality, affordable housing, because I know what that means and the trajectory of life that could have on a person is to have that quality, affordable housing environment.
No, because you've been there. And when you've been there, you appreciate it a whole lot more, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And, I oftentimes share my personal experiences with kids or interns or people that I'm talking to in the community, because sometimes when you're out and you're talking to your residents or just people in general, they don't know what your personal experiences have been. And when I feel the need to share that story, I always share it, because then it makes it more relatable that, you know what, I'm not here just because I like doing this because it's my profession. This is my purpose. This is my purpose driven life. And I enjoy doing the work. It's something that I appreciate sharing when it's necessary to share.
Well, I've been impressed with the technology innovations that I've seen your agency get involved in. So, how did you get the idea to innovate like you have? Tell us what you've been doing and how other agencies, housing and otherwise, really could follow your lead on what you've been doing and accomplishing.
Absolutely. So I've always just innately just how always have been very interested in things that would help the organizations that I work with become more efficient. When I first started working in the housing authority world, I worked at very small housing authorities where that we did not have technology. There were a lot of man hours put into work because you had to in order to meet the goals and objectives in your organization. But after realizing that bringing in various forms of technology could help you maximize efficiencies, it can help you provide much better customer service. I can't speak enough about the customer service improvements that my agency now and in the past have experienced through technology. And also, it also gives staff the opportunity to be able to think outside of the box and excel in other places that they would have otherwise not been able to excel upon had they not have access to those technology items. With us going through the pandemic, we were able to offer a lot more services to our residents electronically than we were prior to. Before, we was offering, like for our resident and family services department, we'd offer less than half a dozen workshops a month. Now we're offering more than 3 dozen workshops a month. And we're able to do that because we're not fighting for space, with and competing against community events for that space. We're not fighting with the unforeseen circumstances that or barriers that our families face in getting to a physical location. They could take the workshops in the confines of their homes. And the truth of the matter is, when we did our surveys, we realized that more of our residents have access to these smart devices than we realize. So everybody has smartphones these days where they can access these virtual platforms in the confines of their homes and be able to participate and get the knowledge and the skills that they need.
Well, I think that's tremendous. Before we go a little further into technology, what kinds of workshops are you offering?
We offer workshops on resume writing. We offer workshops on first-time home buyer workshops. So we do credit repair and getting families ready to purchase, a home for the first time. We even do workshops. We partner with our local fire department, and we offer fire safety workshops. So the fire safety workshops for people who are living in single family homes versus people who are living in high rise facilities, and walking them through those fire safety initiatives in those various places that they reside. Anytime we are in the process of redeveloping a particular development, we're offering workshops to residents and explaining to them what our plans are to rehab, to upfit, to transition that development into a better place for them to call home, and just any type of information that we need to get out to the public. We're offering that. We also offer workshops on civic engagement. So we have our folk from our voter registration department to come down and talk to and educate our families on how to vote absentee or how to vote in person, where the voting precincts are, how they might gain information about a particular the candidates that they're looking to gain information about. Us just explaining to our residents about where we receive our funds from, and letting them know that their voice really matters on local, state, regional, and national elections.
Very true. I think another aspect of technology is that when you look at your funding, which comes from the federal government, which comes from Congress, appropriations, you never know from one year to the next how much you're going to get, sometimes until halfway into the next year, but not always, thank goodness. But the point is that you can't predict, like maybe a business can a little bit better if they can take a look at sales and marketing, what they can do to make it better, but you're subject to Congress. So I would think that technology is so important to you because sometimes you have to be really economically lean to be able to survive from one year to another. Has that helped you in the technology end of it to be better and have more available because of that?
Absolutely. The return on investment, you can't, is immeasurable when you're implementing technology in an environment where the funding fluctuates, and mostly times it's not fluctuating upwards, it's fluctuating downwards. While we have the resources, at our disposal to put into advancing our technology, that is exactly what we have done at Columbia Housing. And so we've transitioned at the best of our ability, all of our technology touch points. And we've also have made sure that those touch points are also areas where we have some flexibility to grow. So we try not to invest in technology touch points where we have no ability to grow in those areas. And so, for example, just even, our website, when we transitioned from our old antiquated website, which is one of our major touch points for communicating with our people, we made sure that website had the capabilities on the back end, on the CMS database, to be able to scale at a much greater level than what we currently were in need of, because we want to make sure that we have the ability to communicate from the back end of that website, to send out information to targeted groups, and making sure that those groups, regardless if those groups are our residents or the general public, we needed to have that access on the back end. We also wanted to make sure that our website had the ability to translate into every type of language that there possibly is. And we have that on our website. And so we never know what our local dynamics are going to be, or whether or not we might have the need to make sure that people who are accessing our website might have a need to understand something in a different language. And so they have the ability to do that. Our website is ADA accessible and ADA compliant. And it's also scalable from the standpoint of you can access information on our website regardless of your device, whether it's a cell phone, an iPad, or computer, laptop, and you get the same experience. Like some websites, you might access those websites and your experience is different because it is only compatible with one access point, where our website is compatible with all of those access points. So those are just the small details and things that we really wanted to focus on to make sure that whatever our needs are in the future, that our technology is scalable so that, to meet those needs.
Have you gone into portals for both owners and families yet?
Absolutely. We have a portal on our website for our owners. We have a portal for our families. We also have a portal for our staff. We have a portal for our board members, and those portals are a great way to keep information, current information, on our site, accessible to the public and to our staff and our board members, and they can access that information at any given time, 24/7. And so those have really been tremendous benefactors for us as well.
So can families do their research, the recertifications, for instance, online?
We're slowly working towards families submitting their recertification online. We're building that data now. There are some things that the families can do right now online, like they can go in and change their income if there's an income change that they have, to begin the recertification process. And so those are things that we're currently building upon right now.
That's great. Let's talk a little bit about DEI. You are a Riley Institute Diversity Leadership Initiative Fellow. That's pretty big. What initiatives do you think both government and companies should be pursuing to create more diversity opportunities?
Yeah. So one of the things that I think that every organization could benefit from, first of all, is engaging a DEI professional to learn about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Each time I have had the opportunity to engage with DEI professionals, I learn something new every time. And I think just having that knowledge is so important to deciding what next in your organization. And I think the what next in any organization, regardless of the work you do or the sphere that you work in, is I think that every organization needs to have a DEI focus. Every organization needs to have a DEI focus. And then deciding based on your organization's capacity, whether or not it's financially you could support hiring a DEI professional in your organization to handle those functions, to make sure that you remain up to speed in in diversity, equity, and inclusion world, and also making sure that DEI is built in the core fabric and culture of your organization from top to bottom. It's built in the recruitment process, the onboarding process, the process of making internal decisions, working on policies and procedures. It's so important to have a diverse perspective from everybody in your organization when you're looking to move your organization forward in a manner that's most impactful to everybody.
Would you explain to the audience what implicit bias means and what the implications are?
Certainly. Implicit bias is when we have attitudes towards people or associate stereotypes with them without our conscious knowledge. So you subconsciously, based on your frame of reference of sorts, you have these biases against people and you don't even realize you have this bias against them. And I'm going to use an example. If in the back of our minds, we feel like, and I'm just going to use this because my hair is graying now. So if you feel like people with gray hair are not that much engaged in their profession, that they're looking for a job to just retire on, then if you're interviewing them for an employment opportunity and you're looking for someone, just say that you feel like this is a great career opportunity that they could potentially work for your organization for many years, you might subconsciously not want to hire that person for that position because you're subconsciously thinking that they're on the back end of their career, which could be far from the truth. And so these are some things that implicit biases can do and can be extremely harmful for our organizations.
What gender-related roadblocks have you yourself personally encountered?
Certainly. I've encountered a number of gender related roadblocks in my professional career, and I'm going to give two examples. One is, my name is Ivory. So Ivory is a unisex name. It's given to both girls and boys. So I recall a time when I was interviewing for an employment opportunity, and I overheard one of the interviewers say, "Oh my goodness," in reviewing this resume, I thought that we were interviewing a man. I just didn't think a young woman could have accomplished all of this. And I just thought by her name being Ivory that it was a man. And I didn't get the job opportunity. And I think about this. This was early on in my career when I just didn't know enough about gender biases and things like that. And so, but when I think about it now, I'm like, you were not provided an opportunity, not because you didn't have the skill set to do the job, but because they thought that they wanted to have a man perform this job. And when you came in the interview, you were not a man. And so that's a roadblock that I have experienced. And another one is, the compensation and benefits, right? So it is one that a lot of folk kind of steer away from when you ask them this question for obvious reasons. But there have been many times when that I've found myself having been offered an opportunity that even after accepting the opportunity, I realized that my male counterpart who may have had this opportunity before I took the opportunity was offered a different compensation and benefits package, while the job description was the same. And so those are still real things, that that women face, and certainly unfortunate.
They are. Another area of expertise for you is in rebranding organizations. Now, I think this is really interesting through what we call transformational and thought-centered approaches to leadership. Tell us a little more about your experience and your approach in that particular area.
So one of the things that I think is super important, and that is taking care of your brand and protecting your brand. The organizations that I've had the pleasure of leading, when I began leading those organizations, I knew that the brand, in many cases, the brand was outdated or either tarnished or just needed to be refreshing. And I knew that based on what I and my new team was going to bring to the table, I knew that I needed to make sure that that brand was reflective of the work that we were going to produce. And so I think it's super important that as, just like as you refreshen or introduce a new strategic plan and a strategic emphasis and focus on your organization, is so important that that brand matches that. When people see your brand, it speaks to the work that you're doing for your organization. And so I knew that with the old brand that we currently have at Columbia Housing, that brand was different than the brand that we were looking to move the agency to a new place, that we were transforming the agency to be the premier housing provider in our community. And so when people see the new brand now, they know that that brand speaks to what the new leadership is looking forward to producing for the organization.
So what I think I'm also hearing you say is that brand and reputation are kind of linked together in a way, especially in the government sector. Absolutely. Brand and reputation they're so linked together.
I was teaching a workshop the other day about branding, and one of the things I use as an analogy is all of us, if we've been ever driving down the interstate and looking for an unhealthy meal, and we see the big golden arch from afar, we realize that that is a place where we can stop and have a very good meal. And I joke and say unhealthy, but healthy or unhealthy. I mean, they have a variety of meal options there, but certainly, that it is a place where you can fulfill your needs, right? And so I want people to know that the reputation that brand that we've created is one that we live by, and that it is proven and is tested, and that they can get exactly what we say that they're going to get when they see that brand.
That sounds good. Who has been the biggest influencer in your life, and why?
Yeah. My mother unquestionably is the most significant influence in my life. She has and continues to make the most impact on the person that I am today. She remains a constant supporter and influencer. Though my mom comes from humble beginnings, as I mentioned earlier in my conversation, she instilled in me the richness of rewards you reap from putting in the work. I've seen my mom persevere from some of the most difficult situations. I remember a time when she was working 2 full-time minimum wage jobs, doing her best to make ends meet. And within the same week, she lost both jobs. One employer where her job was, she sewed cloth gloves. That employer closed and moved their operations to out of the country. And then the second job, within 2 days later, the second job, where she was a full-time cook at a local burger joint, that job experienced a fire and burned down completely. Now, experiencing this type of loss in a family that was already teetering on the edge of losing everything would have broken the average person to their core. But I learned through watching her weather the storms with the perspectives of the goodness that waits on the other side. And her attitude always remained positive, regardless of the cards that life dealt her. So I attribute my ability to remain, as I've been told by many of my colleagues, you're so unflappable. So I attribute my ability to remain unflappable to her. And she's certainly my hero.
Well, thinking about her and thinking about you, what would be your biggest tip for women thinking about moving into management today?
Certainly. My biggest tip to women is to never underestimate the value of a strong support system. In each phase of your career, you are going to need a strong support system. I tell young people that I mentor to think about your career like, when the astronauts are launching off into space, the first phase of the launch is supported by several rockets that are appendaged to each side. And those rockets are there to support and give the shuttle all of the speed and cover that it needs to successfully enter into the atmosphere. Once those 2 rockets have served their purpose and they have guided and supported that shuttle to the point where it no longer has the capacity to facilitate going any further, the 2 rockets are released from the shuttle. The space shuttle then begins to take on another phase, a cruise phase, where the astronauts take over and guide the space shuttle to complete its mission. And once the mission is completed, the space shuttle needs to successfully launch and return to Earth. This is when another set of support systems are needed to help the astronauts successfully return to Earth. And great mentors and support systems understand this philosophy and will be supportive on their journey and professional journey of them trying to meet their goals. And so just know that never, ever underestimate the value of having strong support systems, regardless of where you are in your career.
I love that analogy. That was really good.
Thank you.
That was really good. What would you say are the 3 biggest takeaways that you would like our audience to have from your interview today?
Certainly. The first one is find your purpose and pursue it passionately. Find your purpose and pursue it passionately. The next one is to make your mark in this world by uplifting people on your journey to pursue your passion. And the third one is always believe in who you are and live authentically by what makes you happy.
I so appreciate and agree with everything that you said. I really think you've done a great interview. I'm so pleased for you that you are able to make the achievements that you've made, and the whole big CEO award is, is enormous. Have you got anything else that you'd like to share before we leave?
Yes, I just want to, I want to thank you, Nan, for gifting us this space to be in. You have been such, a phenomenal trailblazer to our industry. I've heard countless stories about how you have always supported us, not just through training and professional development, but also to and through our journeys of our professional careers. And because of you, our industry has very educated, passionate leaders who have rolled up their sleeves and doing the work to make sure that affordable housing is recognized and being valued in all of our communities across the United States. I just want to thank you for gifting that to us.
Well, thank you very much, Ivory. I appreciate that. That's affordable housing has been my life, and doing something different now, I'm still hoping I can make a difference to women, particularly in their journey. And that is what you are doing. And I appreciate everything that you're doing. So thank you again.
Thank you.